Hello, welcome to Hemmings Garage Overtime. My name is Junior Nevison, and today we're going to tackle the interior. We've got our 273 all prepped and sealed up, but before we put the motor in, I've got some holes in the floor to repair, some carpet to pull up, and I'm sure we're going to find other things that are wrong. So let's get to work. I need to pull my gas pedal off here so I can get this carpet up, because, oh boy, I don't fit. I don't want to leave a bunch of carpet remnants kicking around under there. It just pops off there. More often than not, as you can see, the rubber kind of gives out there. This gets thrown away, and more often than not, you have an A100 with just a ball to step on. And see how bad it is under here. Dun, dun, dun. Well, actually, the driver's side is nicer than the passenger side. I will not be upset to see these seatbelts go away. Bye-bye. See what we have under this. Oh, that looks good. Thankfully, they didn't use the entire bucket of glue on that. That's nice. That's going to take a little bit of work to get all that glue off, though. I can tell you already that the bottom of this battery tray is gone because they all rotted out. I am going to have to, what do we got going here? Is that a break, or is that just covering exposed? Oh my. This is going to need new battery cables. That's junk. Plus, they're entirely too small for this. So I am just going to cut those because they are no good. Now for the bad news. How bad did the battery acid eat up the floor? No carriage bolt. Oh, it's a miracle. Oh, I don't want to pull this carpet out. It's just going to create more problems. I hate that carpet anyways. Tan is the wrong color inside this. Oh, the more I dig into this truck, the more work I make for myself. Another pleasant surprise. Oh, that's going to be the... Oh, hallelujah. It came out. Well, for this era and these vehicles, these are kind of a unit construction. There is no actual frame, so it's all sheet metal. A little bit thicker. I'm willing to bet this is probably like 14 gauge, maybe up to 12. So the biggest problem with these is when you get rot over the quote-unquote frame. That makes work a lot harder. So I'm very happy to see that all these are in good shape. These overlaps here really rough. But I'm willing to bet when I start digging into this, I'm going to find a lot more holes. And that makes it difficult too, because that quote-unquote frame runs right up here. So getting the old metal off of that frame is a real pain. Been here, done this, but this isn't going to be a full resto. This is just a sympathetic, keep it from getting worse and getting it back into a driving condition. I'm very happy to see that this is solid right here, because this is a convoluted, there's 3 pieces coming in here. Time to get dirty.
Several days later.
So I spent some time wire wheeling, sanding, picking around on this floor, looking at it. In my defense, I was left unsupervised. So come to find out, this section of floor was just full of pinholes, and there was absolutely no way to sit here and fix each individual hole. So I cut the Swiss cheese out and I made a replacement piece. So I cut it out, laid it down on my piece of sheet metal here, traced it out, cut it out with a cutting disc, and basically that gave me the pattern to make another one. I had to drill out the spot welds that were on the old one, and I actually used those to drill out on my new piece. So when I lay this in, I'll be welding right back exactly where the spots were. Because this is enclosed in here, I just put a little primer on there, because once this is welded in, I will not be able to get any primer in there. So I inadvertently drilled through one of the spot welds here, but it turned out to be in my favor, so I can use a bolt to help hold this in place. Oops, actually, I need to slide that under first. Getting ahead of myself. This piece has to go under. This piece has to go under. There we go. Try and line this all up. Because there's such a distance here, it's hard to get clamps in, so I'm using a lot of magnets, and this bolt will help. Got it exactly where I want it, and this will all shift a little bit as I tack it down. Have to be real careful. Here we go. Let's start over here. Try and get everything as flush as I can. Keep my tacks as small as possible. Grab a straight edge here. Make sure my floor is not dipping off too much or I'm raising it up too much. That's actually not going to be too awful accurate there. I need a smaller square. Nice and level. I just need to push down on that a little bit. And take your time. Just get it nailed down in its initial spot, and then basically I'm just going to go around and grind the majority of these tacks off, because every time you do a tack weld, it wants to shrink it together. So the best way to do this is do a few open tacks, grind off the head of your tack, do a hammer and dolly and try to stretch it back out, and just keep doing that as you go around, and that will help avoid getting a bunch of buckles and keep everything nice and flat. So this is kind of the tedious part here. Lots of grinding. So basically I just have a chunk of metal here from over in my press. I'm just going to put that underneath to act as a dolly. And what I want to do is basically hit right on each spot weld and just try and spread it out a little bit. Doesn't take a lot, and it is tedious, but at the end of this it makes all the difference. And then repeat, and just keep going round and round and round until it's done. I got it in. It's far from good, but it looks good from afar. Get some primer on it and let that dry. We'll seam seal this all up and move on. Alright, our primer is dried. Now I'm going to hit all the seams with the urethane seam sealer. Try and keep all the weather and the water out. We've got a few spots here where the factory had dried out, so I dug that out. And we'll fill it with some new stuff. And that just helps keep water from getting trapped in between the panels. Keep the rust to a minimum. And it's also affectionately called hide-a-sin, because you can just paste this on and hide your poor workmanship. The modern stuff is much, much better than what they used to use back in the 60s, because that all hardened up and it would very easily break over time and come out, which is what we had happen a little bit here. Like I said, this will just keep any water off the road or from the passenger's feet from getting in between the panels and rusting it out. Just try and buy as much time as we can. And there we go. Crawl underneath and seal that up. And then we're done with this. Other than go back through, sand everything real well. We've got a lot of loose paints here still. And I'll empty it out, clean it up, mask it off, and I'm just going to paint the floor from front to back. Alright, so spared you the tedium, sanded the entire floor. This red paint is an enamel. It is incredibly hard. So this actually took a few hours just to sand this down. But now I need to, basically the factory nuts for the Doghouse here are little clip-ins, and they're notorious for breaking. And it makes it really, really hard to get the Doghouse out. So I spent all of 2 minutes trying to locate these, and I had absolutely zero luck. So what I am going to do is take T-nuts and weld those in place so it isn't a two-person job to try and get the Doghouse out of this. If you don't know, a T-nut is basically used for woodworking, and it gives you a blind nut in cabinet making. It has these little points here that dig down into the wood, and that's it. So what I did was cut the little points off, sanded off the galvanized coating, and I am just TIG welding them in place. And that will make it a one-person job to pull the doghouse out. Makes it much, much easier. So let's get into that and show you what I've been doing. First, I need to clean a little bit of paint off here. Just a little scrub. And then I've been hammering it flat because they are all messed up. Get it nice and flat and centered. I tried to make a handy little bridge to hold these in, and it ended up getting in my way too much, so I just went back to simple old vice grips. And yes, I know MIG wire is not the best filler for TIG welding, but for this application it works very well. So I've got some 030 wire here. We've got a 040 tungsten. I'm just going to tap in the corners. I went with the TIG welder because it just allows me to get a nice tight weld in there without a whole lot of grinding after the fact, because MIG welding puts a lot of material in there, and this way I can control it. So this should make it last the life of the vehicle and certainly make it much easier for one person to remove the doghouse. So I cleaned and prepped the entire floor with acetone, hit it with some self-etching primer. And I did notice here that the top coat is direct to metal paint. I'm just in the habit of doing primer first. We'll see how that works out, but I've got their safety red here that seems to be a real close color, and let's see what happens.
Oh, that looks real nice. That actually matches very well.
So stay tuned. In the next episode, we install the drivetrain and take her for a ride. Please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment down below. As always, thank you for watching.